Hello, how's it going? Today I'm going to be going over a whole bunch of really cool things you can do with Ableton's Vocoder. It's actually a really interesting experimental effect, so without further ado, let's learn some things. So what happens when you drag a vocoder onto some audio? So I've got this bongo loop here, it sounds like this. And this is just a vocoder on the stock settings. If I hit play, you can hear that audio is being replaced by the carrier, which is in this case, noise. So there's still that amplitude, that sense of rhythm, right? The peaks and the troughs, they are still there. It's using the peaks and the troughs from the bongo loop, but it's replacing the actual sound with noise. So this is how a vocoder works. We're getting some audio and we're using the amplitude of that audio, and then we're replacing the sound with something else. So if this thing is the thing that we're replacing the audio with, if I go into external and get the audio from, let's say this wavetable, this second track here, it makes sense that if I was to play a chord and then speak into this vocoder, then the exact same thing's going to be happening. We're going to be replacing my voice with the sound of that chord. So here we go.
So now you can hear my voice is being replaced by the sound of the synth.
And so you get the gist. It's replacing the sound with something else, which is actually really similar to something like sidechain gates, which I talk about a lot. Let's do another example here. Check this out. So I've got this little beatbox loop here, right? If I turn on this vocoder, I'm gonna go over to this other MIDI track here and just program in a note so it has a note to play from. Maybe something like this one here. Now you can see that it's getting replaced and we have all of these controls in which we can control it. So let's maybe mess around with these things. So because this is a beatbox, this is actually just like a drum loop, right? I wanted to show you this example to explain that it doesn't have to be just vocals. It can be literally any audio source and it will replace it with something else, which really opens up the possibilities with what you can do with this device, right? So for this next example, I've got two completely different sounds that I'm going to be using this vocoder effect on. I've got this pad here, right? And I've also got this bongo loop here. So I'm going to grab this vocoder and put it on this bongo loop and then go to external and get the audio from this pad audio here. And that's going to be replacing the sound of these bongos with this pad this time. So now we've got a little bit of a synth stabbed kind of effect. If I turn off this pad as well, I can change the depth of this. And it's just a really easy way to get some synth stabs, some rhythmic synth stabs, right? I can experiment around with this band number, so I can pitch these bands around with this formant amount. I can even use this gate amount in here as well. So let's say I do that and I've got this delay here, which is just like a ping pong delay. And so if you've seen any of my sidechain gate videos, you see that this is a very similar vibe to that. I can change the audio on either of these tracks and just keep swapping out that audio and changing the drum loop and changing the audio here and getting different results each time and just keep experimenting with that until I hit something nice that I really like. So it's a really cool creative feature to like sort of extract the rhythm from one side, extract the actual sound from another thing, sort of put them together, combine them together. Very similar to a sidechain gate in that way, but it's doing things in a completely different way. It's just processing it differently and it's just gonna sound different. So you can use vocoder in a few different ways there. You can actually just use it as an audio effect as well. So if I just turn this on, this is just actually a drum loop. I'm just gonna turn this off first. Play that for you. Sort of like distorted drum loop. And I'm gonna turn that on and actually if you put it onto modulator mode, then it just becomes an audio effect and you can just experiment around with the parameters, get a whole bunch of different sounds. So straight away without touching anything else, it does, right? It's already changing what it sounds like. And we can experiment around with these depth controls. We can experiment around with this formant pitching. It's just a good way to change the sound of anything, and I found it very useful in the world of layering drum loops together. So I've got this drum loop here, right? I've got this one here now. Maybe pull up the depth a little bit. This unvoiced thing is really fun to play around with. It accentuates and sort of synthesizes noise on top of sounds that are really top end. So, yep. So you can hear the difference that it's making there. You can put it onto slow. Maybe I'll put this EQ8 afterwards and just take some of the high end out with the high shelf, something like this. Maybe I can even chop out some low end as well. Let's layer these two together and see what it sounds like. I'm gonna widen out this sound a little bit as well. And then I'm just gonna do a bit of group processing on both of the loops together to see if we can glue them together a little bit more. So let me just bring down this output. Bit of drum bus, bit of crunch. Maybe turn this one down a little bit. So using this on modulator mode is just a really fun way of just making some different sounds in your project, really. And if you like your experimental sound design stuff, then I would definitely check this out. So the last thing I wanted to touch on that I've found really useful for using Vocoder is adding a little bit of rhythm to arrhythmic sounds. So I've got this pad in here and I like this pad and I want to keep this pad in the project. I don't want to just use it for the sound to trigger something else. So I'm going to keep it in there and I'm just going to add a little bit more rhythm to it. So I've got this sound here. Just like a bit of a chord progression. And hey, if you do like these sort of analog style pads and samples, I'll leave a link in the description to where you can get some free analog samples just like these ones. And I've got this break loop here as well. The same one as before. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Go grab a vocoder and get the carrier and the input to be from Pad Wash, which is this track here. And now we're gonna be getting this effect. Right? So we're getting a little bit more rhythm to our sound. I'm gonna bring that back a bit. I'm actually got this echo here as well. So let's turn that on, see how this goes. So this is a fun thing. What I might even do is just grab this and just drag this slightly over. I think I might just drag it over by an 1/8 note. So something like this. Let's see how this goes. And I'm actually just gonna turn the metronome on here so you can actually get a bit of context as well. So that actually sounds really cool. It's got a really nice groove to it. What I might even do is just duplicate this track and select all of this again, just drag it back to its original spot and take this vocoder off and just layer it with the original drum sound as well. So let's have a listen to this. So at least I find it really fun to use this to add just a little bit more rhythmic interest. You can see how easy it is. So something is definitely worth checking out in your own time as well. So thanks for watching. Hope you've learned a few things about how you can use Vocoder in some fun ways. If you have any of your own techniques, how you like to use Vocoder, please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for hanging out, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video.